Hi, everybody. Let me know that you can hear me okay. I'm so excited to be here for the second day of the AuthorTube Writing Conference 2024. Let me just take this opportunity to thank everybody so much who's organized this, especially SD. You've done an amazing job. Margaret, absolutely brilliant. And Devon, who I believe is new to the team, just thank you so much. So I'm going to be showing my presentation in just a minute, and then I will be back here live to answer any questions that you have. So if you can try to save as many as possible for the end of the presentation, just so that I'm not trying to search for them through all of the conversation. Please make sure that you boop the like button as well if you haven't already, and consider subscribing to my channel because we do have a lot of fun here. I will catch you guys in a little while after my presentation. Hola amigos, and welcome back to my channel and to my presentation, Keep Pitching Land Traditional Deals After Self-Publishing, which is part of the AuthorTube Writing Conference 2024. I'm really excited to be here and to be part of this amazing weekend. A link to the conference playlist is in the description below, so definitely make sure that you check out all the other presentations. The conference has some single one of them. My name's Emma, and I'm a hybrid author based in the UK. I write contemporary romance, Regency romance, children's picture books, and non-fiction for writers. I'm also a creative writing instructor, a freelance book coach, and developmental editor. I'm going to talk to you today about how you go about landing a traditional publishing deal after you have been self-published. Now, obviously, there are pros and cons to both traditional and self-publishing, and I am by no means saying that you should want to move to being traditionally published if you are very happy being self-published. A career in self-publishing can be an excellent choice for a lot of writers, and moving over to traditional publishing is definitely not for everyone. There are many things I love about self-publishing, chief of these being the freedom that it allows me. This was particularly helpful when I was publishing my first contemporary romance, The Green Hills of Home, 11 years ago when I had 4 children under 8 years old, and it would have just been really hard for me to be able to stick to any publishing deadlines. One of the great things about self-publishing is that it's a really great way to start out with a lot less pressure than traditional publishing. You can do things at your own pace and not have to worry about sticking to deadlines set by your publisher. Then, if like me, you find you continue with your writing, have more time to write consistently and to stick to deadlines, and don't like or aren't very good at the marketing side of publishing, it might be time to consider approaching a traditional publisher. While moving from self-publishing to traditional publishing isn't something the vast majority of authors do, there are some very famous writers who have taken this route. Andy Weir is a fantastic example. He wrote The Martian, which went on to become a massive bestseller and became a movie starring Matt Damon, which never fails to make me cry at one particular point. Let me know in the chat if you can guess what that bit of the movie is. Anyway, Mr. Weir didn't think that any traditional publishers would be interested in his work. So he went and he launched small little bits of it on a blog, and very quickly grew a big following. Realizing that people did actually like what he wrote, he self-published The Martian, and it became a #1 Amazon bestseller. Soon after, he signed a lucrative publishing and film rights deal. To date, his book has sold about 3 million copies, and the film grossed $630 million worldwide. E.L. James is another great example. She wrote her romantic erotica series 50 Shades of Grey as a fan fiction piece based on the YA series Twilight. After changing characters, taking out the vampires and the werewolves and tweaking the story quite a bit, James self-published the first part of the trilogy and saw masses of success in her first year. In fact, within that first year, she received a traditional publishing deal, and the rest, as they say, is history. 50 Shades of Grey would go on to sell over 100 million copies and become one of the fastest selling paperbacks in history, as well as becoming a series of films which apparently some people managed to sit through. Then we have American businessman and author Robert Kiyosaki. So he had a pretty rough start. He was told by many, many publishers and agents that nobody would be interested in his manuscript, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He decided to self-publish, and the book was then taken on by a publisher. To date, Rich Dad, Poor Dad has sold over 40 million copies in over 50 languages in 109 countries, and it was on the New York Times bestseller list for over 6 years. Another example is Lisa Genova. Before the Oscar-winning film adaptation of her book, Still Alice, which is the story of a university professor who develops early onset Alzheimer's disease, she wrote and self-published the novel in 2007. She was rejected many, many times by commercial publishers, which is why she decided to go it alone. But after gaining popularity, the book was signed by Simon & Schuster and was republished in 2009. These, of course, are examples of huge, huge success. But landing a traditional publishing deal after self-publishing is also possible for regular humans. I know this because I managed it. Make sure you've got a cuppa handy because this story takes a while. Way back in the annals of history, in 2013, I wrote my first romance book, The Green Hills of Home, basically on a whim. I decided to self-publish it because I wanted to get the book out there and read, and I didn't feel I had the time or the energy to query it potentially for years without having a publisher interested. As I mentioned earlier, I had 4 children under 8 years old at the time, which kind of, kept me quite busy. I also imagined that a publisher would want me to stick to strict deadlines, which I just wasn't sure I would be able to do. And I didn't even know if I would go on to write anything else. To be honest, previous to that, I'd focused on writing children's picture books. I think that I'm right in that the only thing that I actually paid for when self-publishing that book was an ISBN, which you need to pay for in the UK, although not in some other countries. I'm definitely not saying that this is the best way to do things. It just happens to be what I did. My husband helped me to edit and proofread the book, and he designed the cover and formatted the book for me. The Green Hills of Home got some lovely reviews, and I absolutely worked my bottom off doing guest posts on blogs, posting on social media, and I even did an author talk in a library, which I found absolutely terrifying, and I'm not sure that I would ever be brave enough to do again now. I did already have a little bit of a following before releasing this book because I ran a book review website for several years before self-publishing. And so I wasn't completely unknown in the writing community, I guess. And this definitely gave me an in when it came to my Facebook posts being shared by other authors, for example. Anyway, being a sucker for punishment, I decided to write my second book, which went considerably faster because I did a little bit of planning with this one and I didn't hop around writing whatever scene I fancied nearly as much. As I was finishing it, I happened to interview an author for my book review website, and she mentioned that she just signed with a new publisher and they sounded really interesting. She was really pleased with what they'd been doing for her. And so I looked them up and decided to submit to them. And not only did they accept my second book, then called His Secret Daughter, but they also wanted the rights to The Green Hills of Home. And so that was the first time that I had one of my previously self-published books taken on by a traditional publisher. I went on to publish 2 novellas and another full-length romance with this publisher before I left them, because I had a problem with my left ear, which caused such bad vertigo that I wasn't able to use a computer. And so I was just unable to write another book for them. Fast forward a couple of years, and I was feeling so much better that I wrote my rock star romance, Starstruck, which I decided to self-publish. This was mainly because I was really worried that my vertigo would come back. And so I very much wanted things to be on my own terms and to be able to control everything in case I wasn't able to do some of the things that I wanted to. I didn't want to be beholden, if you like, to a publisher and to have those deadlines, which I would then have the stress of not being able to meet if my vertigo did come back again. So not only did I self-publish that book, but I decided to self-publish all of my previously published works as well, which was a really big undertaking. This time I actually paid for some stock photos to use when designing the covers, as well as ISBNs. So I was really splashing out. This was the big leagues. I was able to transfer over Amazon reviews to the new editions, which definitely gave them a boost, but I still wasn't reaching a wide enough audience to have really decent sales. And I imagine a lot of that was just down to my poor marketing at the time, to be honest. And so a year later, I gave a publisher another try. I had a new book that I'd written, Her Sister's Baby, and it was published by a small indie publisher. They ended up doing an absolutely terrible job, I'm afraid, and I demanded my rights back within the year. It actually took me another year and a half, I think, to get those rights back, but it can be done. So fast forward another year, and I'd written my romance, Falling in Love at Nightingale Farm. I sent this off to 2 publishers, still thinking that it would be a good idea to get at least some of my books traditionally published, so that the pressure of marketing them was off me, and I was feeling more confident that my vertigo wouldn't come back at this point. So the first of these publishers made me an offer, but I didn't think that they'd actually be the best fit in the end. The second publisher also made me an offer, but bizarrely, they weren't happy for me to have any other books published at all. So I would have had to unpublish all of my self-published books and not offer them to any other publisher, or self-publish them again, which seemed more than a little unreasonable. I then decided to try one last publisher and sent them Nightingale Farm. They made me an offer for it and wanted to take on my other full-length self-published books as well, which I hadn't even been offering at the time. After a lot of umming and ahhing, because I really do like the control you have when self-publishing, as well as the higher royalties, and I spent a lot of time getting those books ready to be self-published. I really liked the covers. I was very attached to them. But I did actually sign a 5-book contract with Joffrey Books in 2022 and another 4-book contract in 2023, and they remain my current publishers. And so you can see my publishing journey has definitely had twists and turns, and I'm pretty sure that it will continue to do so. But what we're focusing on here is the fact that I am now traditionally published after self-publishing, and that my self-published books were actually included in publishing deals. So let's move on to how you can set yourself up to achieve the same thing. I want to concentrate today on my bigger publishing deal, the one that I signed in 2022, when discussing what I believe I did, which secured me my publisher. This was a 5-book deal consisting of 4 previously self-published books, which was still self-published when the publisher offered for them. And in fact, my contract stipulated a date I needed to take each of them down from Amazon on. And then also there was a previously unpublished brand new book, which they were signing for. I should say that one of the books included in this contract in particular had a lot of Amazon reviews. It had ended up being a pretty big bestseller. years before. And so this was a big draw to my publisher, I believe, as these were carried over to the new editions they put out. So the first thing that is absolutely essential that I believe that you do when querying a traditional publisher after self-publishing is to choose the right publisher. Different publishers publish different genres and will be looking for certain books at any given time. So even if there are a publisher which specializes in fantasy books, for example, they might in particular be looking for fantasy books starring elves, for example, for the next few months. And they might not be looking for anything with wizards, even though previously they have wanted just wizards. Make sure you are approaching the right publisher in that, first of all, that they're accepting submissions and that they are accepting unsolicited manuscripts as well, if you don't want to go down the agent route, which I didn't, and that they're publishing your genre and are looking to publish more of it. So I knew the publisher that I was approaching quite well. I knew that they were very well respected. They'd grown hugely in, I think it was about 10 years previously that they started up. And I knew that they were looking to expand into romance after focusing on thrillers previously. So it really was perfect timing for me. A lot of that was chance, it has to be said, but there was also quite a bit of research that went into it. So the next point that I'd like to make is that it is really important that you follow their submission guidelines. All publishers have guidelines as to how they accept submissions. You need to make sure that you read them through really thoroughly and follow them to the letter. Some ask for double spacing, for example. Some want a one-page synopsis, while others want 2. There's all kinds of different things. I know that it can sound like being fussy, but publishers get sent an awful lot of manuscripts, and you want to give yours the best chance. There are definitely publishers out there who simply won't look at your submission if you haven't followed their guidelines. I do have to say, though, that I broke this rule a little bit when I was getting in touch with my publishers, because I actually sent an email to gauge interest in my submission without formally submitting it, because I wanted to make absolutely sure that it would be something they'd consider. I was then asked to send my completed manuscript. That was of the one that had never been published before and never needed to bother with a synopsis in that case. And they didn't even read the other books, the ones which were self-published, before they offered me a contract. I'm guessing that they just figured that they would, you know, they had good reviews and that they were in a similar style to the unpublished book which they had read, and so they were happy with that. So another point that I'd like to make, and this is something that I have seen self-published writers doing before, is that even though you may have completely beautiful editions of your self-published book, maybe you've even got special edition hardbacks or something like that, please do not consider sending these to a publisher as your submission. They want you to follow the guidelines. They want you to send them electronically whatever files that they have asked for. Something that I would really recommend when submitting to a traditional publisher, although this one definitely takes some time and commitment, is to have multiple books written. Self-publishing at least one book should put you in a better position when it comes to approaching publishers. You'll have a proven track record of sorts. Most publishers are looking to invest in an author long term. It costs a lot for them to put out a book. They're not just going to want to go to all that effort to get their author on the website to promote that author just for one book. They want you to have several books out with them. They don't want to take a chance on someone who's written one book, or maybe even just a synopsis and a few chapters of a book. If you have at least one book behind you and another you're offering, it shows you're serious and not just a one-hit wonder. So I guess this was the first thing that I did right. I had a new book I was offering and 4 full-length romances and 2 novellas already under my belt. Even with my first publishing contract, I had a complete manuscript as well as one self-published book. Now, in general, publishers will want first publishing rights, so it is more likely that you would be offered a publishing deal for a new work rather than one that has been published before. You might also decide that you don't want to give up the rights to your self-published books and that you're not offering these. I wasn't planning to offer my self-published books, if you recall. What I found with my two novellas, which remain self-published, is that they sell now without me having to market them. And this is presumably because of people buying my traditionally published books and then stumbling upon the novellas when they're looking for more of my titles. So this is a definite bonus and is something to bear in mind when you are deciding whether you want to offer your self-published books included in publication. My next suggestion when querying is to be positive about self-publishing and your self-publishing experience. Like I say, I didn't actually offer my self-published books in my querying letter, but I did, of course, talk about them, pointing out that, some of them had been bestsellers, the number of reviews that they had, and things like that. And I think it's really important to remain positive about your experience with self-publishing. Present the choice that you made to self-publish as one that was deliberate and that was very carefully thought out. Never hide the fact that your book began life as a self-published project. Self-publishing is absolutely nothing to be ashamed of, and publishers know that authors can learn a lot from the experience and bring valuable insights into their target audience. Next, I would like to encourage you to showcase your brand. You should do all that you can to build up your author brand before submitting to a publisher. Work out which social media platforms you want to present on and do them well. An active social media following from a strong author platform with a loyal fan base is something that is really going to appeal to a traditional publisher. You will have a ready-built market, and that's exactly what a publisher is after. They don't want just another manuscript. They get sent a lot of manuscripts. What's going to make an author stand out is already having a following. This is honestly even more attractive to a publisher than if your book that you've self-published has sold a lot of copies. Remember, the bigger your following, the lower the potential marketing costs the publisher needs to factor in for your book are. When I submitted to my publisher, I had an author website, Instagram account, Twitter, as it was known then, and I had a Facebook page as well. I'd also recently started my YouTube channel, so I had people who'd read my stuff and who wanted a new book from me. My next tip is to compare your books to others. Let the publisher you are submitting to know what to expect from your work by comparing it to other authors in your submission letter. Just a simple line in your query like, my books are perfect for fans of blah, 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 listing some authors with similar styles in your genre. This tells the publisher a lot, and it's a quick way for them to be able to tell if your book will be a right fit for them at the moment. My final suggestion is to share data. Anyone who self-published a book is aware that it is an awful lot of hard work if you want to do it well and hopefully sell copies. But actually self-publishing a book, as in sticking something on Amazon and hoping for the best, is incredibly easy. And publishers know this. They are not going to be impressed simply by the fact that you've self-published even multiple books. They're going to want to see reviews and social media stats, as well as any evidence that you have of good sales if you manage to achieve that, which is something I honestly never managed when self-publishing. Make sure that you put any information like this in your query letter. Don't leave it to them to try to search it out, especially because there might be things that they miss. For example, if your book was a bestseller when you released it a year ago, that's not going to show up on Amazon easily for them. So just make sure that you put that into your letter. As I said at the beginning of my talk, making the move from self to traditional publishing is definitely not for everyone. There are plenty of writers who are very happy self-publishing, either because they just enjoy it, or for the higher royalties, or because of the control they have over their work. One of the hardest things about being traditionally published after self-publishing is losing your autonomy over your work. You'll be giving up the rights to your book baby, and you will likely lose control over artwork and other design elements. This can be hard if you're used to being able to have everything exactly as you like it. I'm very thankful that my publisher does an amazing job. I have wonderful editors, and I'm thrilled with the cover designs for my books. I've been able to say if there's something I'm unhappy with, and my suggestions have been implemented. But this is definitely not the case with all publishers, and it is important to be aware of that and not just fall into the trap of thinking that being traditionally published is definitely the right choice for every writer. You've absolutely got to do what is right for you. And bear in mind that if you do get a traditional contract and it doesn't work out for you, you can get your rights back and return to self-publishing if you wish. I'm really happy at the moment being a hybrid author. A lot of my marketing and fiddly bits of publishing, which I struggle with, are dealt with for me, but I still get to have total autonomy over my non-fiction titles, which I self-publish. It's a nice mix for now, at least. Now it's time for any questions you might have. And I'm back. If you can just let me know that you can see and hear me, again, that would be great. I really, really hope that my presentation was useful to everybody. There have been some lovely, lovely comments in the chat, especially about my covers, which is really, really great. I have been so, so lucky with my publisher at the moment with the covers. I've actually got here, I thought people might like to see how the covers have changed on my first book. So this was my debut novel, The Green Hills of Home. And this was the original cover from when it was self-published. It's really, really cute. I really like the hearts and things and the tagline and stuff. And yeah, I'm very, very attached to this as my first ever cover, not just for that book, but for any book. Then the next one with my first publisher was this one. Now, this was actually really sweet because the two models I found out on this cover, he's Italian, and he got in contact with me and he said that in real life, she was actually his girlfriend and he was wanting to propose. So he ordered her a copy of the book so that they would have this cover when he proposed, which I thought was really, really lovely. Then when I was self-publishing this book again, this is the one. So this was when I went completely crazy and paid for some stock photos. So yeah, I really liked this look. I think the photo covers are more popular in America probably than the UK, but personally I really like them. And then finally, this is the new cover for when this came out last year or the end of the year before. I think it was the end of 2022. So that was kind of going with the theme that my publishers had for my books at that point. They've actually changed that now. If you see my latest covers, they're kind of more cartoony, which I really like, and they're going for more kind of a chick lit look rather than like a traditional romance look. So that's really cool. Let's have a look back in the chat. Andy is a romantic, a love story within the cover story. That's awesome. It was lovely when he contacted me. I sent him a copy. I can't remember what else I sent, but yeah, hopefully she liked it. I don't know if she said yes. I hope so. And yeah, as my lovely mod points out, if you have questions, please put the Q in front of them so that I can find it, because if you've been to my streams before, you know that I'm not the greatest with the comments. And Rachel is also asking for you to make sure to leave feedback for me. And if you do, then you get to enter all kinds of giveaways. There are loads and loads of prizes available. So yeah, definitely make sure that you do that. DL says, I have some romance series I have that I may look into getting trad published since I would be okay with changes and cover. Excellent. It is lovely to have such a great team behind me and to have so many editors looking over my books. So with my traditional books now, I've got the commissioning editor who originally reads at least the synopsis and signs the book. And then I've got the developmental editor. I've got 2 copy editors usually work on my books, and then I've got somebody else who does the proofreading. So that is a lot of eyes going over my books, as well as beta readers and obviously me. So that is a really nice side of things. If you do have any questions or anything, please feel free to reach out to me on Discord or on my Instagram or anything like that, and I will do everything that I can to help. It would be my absolute pleasure. And the Better Laura says, I heard that during COVID, lots of romance book cover shoots had to be real life couples due to COVID rules. They had to be or they couldn't be? Oh, they had to be. Oh, I get it. Yeah, because they were already close to each other. Oh, okay, cool. That's nice. I quite like that idea. I think my mum was a model back in the 60s and 70s, and her best friend was also a model. And I know that she did a book cover for like an anthology of romance stories with her partner, which was really nice. Richard says, the cover story, love story, could be a novel even of itself. Definitely, I should think about that. Absolutely. Right, T. Marie Alexander says, if one wanted to become a hybrid author, how would you decide between which novels to self-publish versus pitching to agents for traditional publishing? Okay, so like I say, I didn't actually pitch my self-published novels to my publisher. I mentioned them in the cover letter and they went and looked them up and made me an offer for them. They didn't offer for my novellas, and I'm not surprised about that. They were a little bit of an experiment. That was the point at which I started struggling with my vertigo. And so I thought maybe writing shorter works would help, because while I was able to actually physically write, especially if it was pen and paper, it was editing that I found really hard, because if you've had vertigo, it makes your head, like, everything in there is all weird. You can't think as clearly as normal, and so kind of following the threads of the story and things like that were really tricky. So that was why I tried writing the novellas, and I really like them and I'm proud of them, but I'm not surprised that they didn't offer for that. What I would say is that you really need to think about your own marketing plan for any books that you don't want to offer to be self-published. In terms of, are you just going to allow trickle-down sales to happen, or do you want more than that? And that's something only you kind of really know, either what you want or what you're able to do. I know that marketing is really not my strength. So although it was sad to leave control of some of my book babies, it was a relief in a way to have that side of things like taken off my plate, I guess. Of course, there is always the case, as I said in my presentation, there will be a lot of publishers who just aren't interested in taking on anything that has already been self-published. I came across that, myself, with the publishers who didn't want me to have anything else published at all, apart from that one book with them. So it might be that it's not actually your decision to make, if that makes sense, because they just might not be wanting to take on the previously published books. DL says, did you get an agent before looking for a publisher? Is that always a must? No, I didn't. I did consider querying agents, but I spoke to some editors at the Romantic Novelists Association conference who I had one-to-ones with. And basically what they said was that in my case, with the type of books that I write, there wasn't anything extra that an agent would be able to do for me. They didn't think that I wouldn't be able to do for myself. In other words, it just wasn't worth me having an agent for the type of books that I write. I definitely would consider having one in the future if I thought that it did make sense, and it might be that for what you write, it will make sense for you. And the Better Laura says, do you get help from your editor to decide on which of your ideas should be your next book? Yes, definitely. I will kind of go back and forth with the commissioning editor with some ideas and check that she likes them before I commit to writing anything. There was a case last year where I was writing a book and I was just really, really, really struggling with it. I couldn't work out what was wrong. I was stuck, and there just definitely was something that wasn't going right, but I just couldn't see what it was. And so I spoke to her about it, and she basically said that it was my hero, that he was rubbish, and that where I was going with him was just a little bit too random. So she helped me to kind of straighten him out. And then she said that what they'd really like from me is a Christmas book. So I then rewrote that book, and it became A Christmas Truce, which came out last November. So that was tricky in places, because I'd originally written it so that it took place in August, kind of July and August. And so there were quite a few changes that I needed to make. There was a scene that was supposed to be in an outdoor pool, for example, that had to move to an indoor pool. And there's one scene where there's a gardener who takes off his top. And so I had to change that, because the poor guy would have been absolutely freezing in December. But yeah, I definitely go back and forth with ideas and send a synopsis, and then she'll come back to me if she thinks there's anything that needs tweaking. DL agrees that Vertigo is the worst. And Better Laura says it sounds an absolute nightmare. Yeah, it's really not fun, especially because you don't always know how bad it's going to be on any particular day. So it could be that I could function fairly normally, just not moving my head a lot, or it could be that I was stuck in bed. Basically, it was definitely not fun. Marketing is a foe to many. Yes, it definitely is. And I'm very, very grateful to Andy's help with my marketing of my nonfiction books that I brought out last year. Romance and Carrying On with Janet Geller says, a number of the traditional offers came with the requirement to unpublish or self-publish books. Did they do that to republish them because they were in the same series, or for another reason? Yeah, so when your books are signed with a publisher, they then own the rights to those books, so they wouldn't be published anywhere else. So yes, part of my contract was for each of the books that had been self-published, there was a date that I needed to take them off Amazon, so that it gave them, like, I can't remember, kind of a month or something before them re-releasing them with their covers and their ISBNs and under their publishing imprint. And that's the only reason, is that it's the copyright is owned by them. It's not the copyright's mine, but basically the right to the book, they're borrowing them, if you like. They are taking them off me while they are publishing the book. And so, it wouldn't be published in lots of different places. Angela says, mind you, the marketing budget isn't available like the 70s. You're going to do the lion's share of the marketing, whether yourself or trad. Yes, but it does depend on your publisher. Like, for example, my publisher, they'll give me ideas of TikToks to do sometimes that they think would work really well for my books. And then if I film something, I can send it to them and they'll kind of like make it all snazzy and things. They'll also make me book trailers and graphics and things, and they send those to me before the book comes out so that I can share those. So they do quite a bit of the work for me. And Andy says, do you do most of the marketing for your trad published books? What sort of percentage of marketing effort do you estimate you do versus your publishers do for you? Okay, so I answered that a little bit In the previous question, so, I do some, I will take pictures of my book covers, pictures of me with my book covers and things like that. And obviously I share things about them on YouTube. On my channel, there's actually me reading some of each of, it's like 4 or 5 books that I read the beginning of on my YouTube channel, for example. I do things like that. But yeah, they provide me with graphics, they'll provide me with book trailers and things like that. Obviously, they're in charge of promos for the book, so they'll do kind of, special offers and things, BookBub promotions, and they will let me know when those are going on so that I can promote them. And Hawkins, hello Hawkins. The most important thing about getting a deal with a trad publisher is the marketing. Yes, it is a definite bonus, but also having the editorial team behind you, I would say more than that. Even if you are self-publishing and you are paying for editors and things, it can really, really add up, especially if you're, getting editors that charge quite a lot, and if you're getting both a developmental and a copy or line editor, and you're getting proofreaders, it costs a lot. So not only are you saving a lot of money, but you also knowing that the people that you're working with are real professionals. You're not taking any chances with maybe an editor that you don't know. Laura says, oh no, you lost a Topness gardener, a tragedy. I know, I managed to get him down to like a t-shirt if I remember, but I did feel a bit cruel. Poor guy. Devon says, as far as marketing, do you get to share whatever you want with readers, fans, or are you restricted with TradPub? I don't get told what I can share. I share when I want. They just send me graphics and things and ask me to share them for the book. I mean, obviously, like in my contract, I have to behave myself, basically. I can't share anything that, would bring harm to my publisher or to my author name or to my books or anything like that. But within reason, I'm not expected to do so many TikToks a month or so many Instagram posts a month or anything like that. And Felicia says, how do you decide and plan how many books to write per year? I don't. My publisher is really, really good about kind of taking me the lead, letting me take the lead as to what I'm happy to do, what I'm comfortable doing. So this year has been a bit bonkers because I've got quite a lot of books coming out at the moment. But that's kind of because they're backed up because I had some books already written. So I had my book, The Baby Plan, which came out in March, I believe it is. I had my Christmas book, which came out in November. Then next month, I've got my summer book, and then I've got a Christmas book coming out this November. This is definitely too much to be sustainable over a long period of time. And I definitely didn't write all the books coming out within the space of a year. Within a year, if that makes sense. So I'm not sure how many books I will have out next year when it comes to contemporary romance and with this publisher, but I suspect just the one, which I will probably write during NaNoWriMo. Right, let's see. Richard asks, how did I decide on my pen name? So I wanted a name which was, that it sounded like somebody who wrote romance, that it was kind of a gentle, like girly name, if you like. So I went for a mixture between, so Emma Woodhouse, who is my favorite Jane Austen character, and Elizabeth Bennet, who is my second favorite Jane Austen character. So we had Emma Bennet. That's how I came up with it. Bennett book barrages it, where yeah, it's been a lot, because of course it's not just writing the books, but it has been insane for the last few months with the amount of editing that I've needed to do. Just last week I was sent copy edits for one book and developmental edits for the next within half an hour of each other, and it's definitely too much. This year will not be being replicated. This will not be usual, but it will be nice to have all those books out. I think it's 15 books I will have available by the end of this year, which obviously it's really, really nice to have that number of titles available for readers. And yes, Andy is reminding everybody to sign up to my newsletter. You really do not need to worry about being bombarded, because I'm completely useless at sending out newsletters, and usually Andy has to remind me when something important happens. And I say, oh, I've got nothing to write about. And he's like, you had a book out last week or something. So I could do better with that. But the main thing is you don't need to worry about receiving too many. And again, don't forget to fill out that feedback form for the AWC to be entered into all those awesome giveaways. 15 books, but it has been a long time. It's been 11 years. So that's quite a long time. Although I did have a couple of years where I didn't publish anything. So yeah, 15 books is so many. You've been busy. Yes. Well, one of them is, I also write children's picture books. So one of them is a picture book. 2 of them are non-fiction books for authors, and there will be another one of those available at the end of next month. Fingers crossed. And we have another question. I am a multi-genre writer, and I have multiple pen names for my romance and horror. Do you think this would be a turn-off, a trad, if I ever seek a publisher for my romance books? No, I don't think that it would, as long as your romance books have a definite brand and are connected in that they are all, in the same genre and have a similar feel to them. And then you kept your horror stuff with a different pen name and very much separate. I think that they'd be absolutely fine with that. And Gwenna says, do you think the earliest books of your backlog still sell? Yes, they definitely still sell. Something really clever, which my publishers did, is after they re-released my self-published books, they put all of them into, actually all of them, and I think Nightingale Farms in there as well, but into an ebook box set. And that did really, really well, because it was crazy cheap, and people could just really get settled in and read like all 5 of those books for, I think it was like £1.99 or something. So, but the main thing that was really good about that was it was on Kindle Unlimited, and that was a lot of page reads. So they still do really well from that. The ebooks still sell. I tend to have about 90 to 95% of my sales are ebooks rather than physical books. So I don't sell a lot of paperbacks. Obviously, like friends and family and like booktubers and people like that who like to be able to show the covers, and libraries. Libraries obviously buy the paperbacks as well. 15 books is a great backlog for reading through and more readers in general. Absolutely. And he says, is there a sweet spot on minimum number of books to generate, say, a living wage? It completely depends on how many books you're selling and what genre you write in. Romance readers are notoriously voracious readers. They were the first readers to really take on Kindle, because they just read so much that ebooks were brilliant because they were cheaper for them. So I'm just really lucky in that, romance readers will discover a writer and will then just go and read everything that they've written. And that probably isn't the same for all genres. Yeah, the box set was a great idea. Oh, have you? Better Laura's got it. Brilliant. Yeah, they do need the bargains, otherwise we'd all be cheap. We'd all be poor, is what I mean. Rachel, I'm addicted to paperbacks. They are my trophies. Yeah, I don't, oh, sorry, that's my dogs. I don't read ebooks typically. I do like to have paperbacks. Yeah, of course, Andy and I are twinsies. And there's another question there. Richard says, I'm not cheap. Thank you. That's probably the nicest thing you've ever said about me. Rachel says, do your social media follower numbers help out anymore when approaching a trad publisher? Yeah, definitely. Especially engagement rather than numbers, because, you know, as we all know, and this is something that I covered on my book about X, as it's now known for writers, and that is that you know, anybody can get a few thousand followers on social media just by following a load of other people, basically, and getting follow backs and things. It's the engagement that really, really matters. And that's what publishers are going to want to see. But yeah, definitely, like, follower numbers are definitely still something useful that you can send out to let them know that, you know, that you are serious about being a writer, that you want this as a career, and that you are willing to put in the work to market your books, if you like. Right, paperback. Yes, paper. You have one of mine. Yeah, you haven't read it yet, have you? Brilliant. Okay, guys. Well, if that is all the questions, then I think we had better wrap up this session today so that we can get on to the next one, because there are so many brilliant sessions on today. Make sure that you check out the description if you haven't already to get that playlist so that you can watch every single presentation during this weekend's conference. Oh, there is one more question. I've just got time for this. Felicia says, do you use a Kanban board to help organize your plots or timelines? If not, what systems do you use? I do not. I'm basic. I use a notepad and pen. It's that simple. When I start a project, I have a notepad and pen, and yeah, I just write what I think and see if it kind of makes sense. And sometimes there's like spider diagrams where I'm trying to work out how things connect. But yeah, just pen and paper. Okay, well, thank you so much for everybody who's come to this presentation. I really, really hope that it was useful. And please remember to put that like button if you haven't already, and subscribe if you're not, because it would be really, really lovely if you would follow my channel. And I will see you really, really soon. Bye for now.